If you're looking for advice on how to survive the corporate world, our next guest could help. The Little Black Book of Success, Laws of Leadership for Black Women, is a compilation of tips for African-American women about how to survive and succeed in the corporate world. Marsha Haygood and Elaine Brown are the book's authors, and they join us today. Thank you for stopping by. We all have our copy of the book.
We do. Right.
So, let's just start with the first question is, what is different between white women in the corporate world and black women?
Well, I think that this book is good leadership principles for everyone. However, I think black women assume that they're going to have some issues. And so to become strategic, they need to think about some of the things that they may go through and how they can handle it strategically. And this book tells them just that.
Okay, so some tips basically for women maybe entering the corporate world.
Absolutely, and I just would like to add to what Marsha said, if you don't mind. I mean, we're sort of 1955 with Brown versus Board of Education, so we've not really had any predecessors. Many of us are still pioneers, so we wrote.
Well, it's true, there's a significant lack of African-American women, as well as African-American men and Latinos in the C-suite area of corporations. Right. And the policy is set at that level and trickles down.
Okay.
And so some tips basically for women who are now entering the corporate world.
Well, networking is really important, especially in this day and age, in this economy, because no longer are people, women, men, able to get in and get face-to-face interviews. And so networking is very important to get out and join organizations, industry groups, and not just exchange business cards, but actually to develop relationships.
So, okay, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, and network with people of every ethnicity and every age. And every field.
That's interesting because many of us simply stay within our little circle.
Absolutely.
And expanding out is really key to finding work at all and to be successful in your jobs. What kind of drove you to write this book? I mean, did your friends say, did you see people struggling?
We absolutely did.
Yeah.
Absolutely did. I think that we started out by saying we see people making mistakes that could really be avoided. Becoming more strategic, sort of putting those experiences that we've had and that we've seen in a book where people can read and say, you know what, I see myself doing that. And, oh, I hadn't thought of doing it in this way. It's really helpful.
And we wrote the kind of book we wish we had when we were coming along. So, and we actually read our book and take our own advice.
So tell me a little bit about the research you did to kind of discover what works and what doesn't work.
Well, what's interesting is that we did a lot of research based on our own experiences. And we wanted the book to be accessible. We didn't want it to be esoteric. So we didn't want to do a lot of heavy-duty research. But we do cite a few studies in the book. Harvard University, for example, they did a study, a very interesting study on biases and perceptions. So you'll find a few of those case studies mentioned.
See the bias explicitly, and you have to sort of kind of read it and feel it out a little bit. What about if you don't want to be in the corporate world? Is this book helpful for those who want to go out on their own?
Absolutely. And we talk about the first person you lead being yourself.
Because nobody wants to go work for a corporation.
Yeah, well, nonprofit organization, any kind of organization. Our other co-author Rhonda talks about family reunions in terms of leading groups or teams. It's very helpful and gives very practical advice.
And we also think that we talk about this, leaders not just being born. They're made.
You mentioned that. Leaders are not just born, they are made.
Exactly.
And I think that's people's experiences in the corporate world is that you have to have that sort of turning point of when you become a leader.
Well, you do have to have a turning point. You don't just automatically become a leader, but you take those experiences that you have and the ability that you have, and you add to that strategy.
And there are skill sets to leadership that you could absolutely learn.
Do you advise women basically to do more than just their job in the workplace?
In fact, we have a chapter.
You need to have basically multi-jobs in a place.
Absolutely. In fact, there's a chapter in our book that says, regardless of your position, learn all you can about your company, your industry, because just as a part of networking.
How do you think African-American women have come over the past several decades, in the past even few years?
I think that we have grown, but there's a lot more to learn.
Yes.
I think that if you can remain open-minded about learning from everyone, then you will be more successful. And to not just think about leadership at work, leadership happens all the time. You lead your family, you lead in your community, you lead in your corporation. You definitely lead if you start your own company. So looking at all of that and taking all of those experiences has been helpful.
Do you find that women in particular have a different persona at home? Or maybe they are the leaders and they are looking over the finances and then they get to work and it changes?
Yes,
absolutely.
And I don't think women actually realize that those experiences at
They don't
home
take it for
actually
granted.
transition. Yeah,
They don't see it.
They don't see managing the home
And they also don't like to share. And I think this is something that definitely Black women are told, you know, leave your work, leave your home life at home. So by not sharing those experiences and those leadership abilities that they have.
And you're saying they should share those experiences?
Absolutely.
Because organizations, their boss, their coworkers don't know that they have those skills because they've never
talked about it. You know, you mentioned corporate culture and how important it is to fit into corporate culture. What do you mean by that? Because you really can't change corporate culture.
No, you can't change corporate culture, but each corporation has its own culture, and so it's important for women to just observe and take notice of what's going on around them, to see how people get promoted, to see how people communicate, to see, you know, communication style is very important as well.
So as people enter back into the workforce, as the economy maybe comes back a little bit, some general tips for people to get back into the place?
I go back to networking, and Marsha said, you know, just not networking with people who look like you. But when we go out and speak, we actually asked women to look at who is in their network, Black, white, male, you know, female, and that's really important, and to step outside of your comfort zone.
Okay, the book is the Little Black Book of Success, Laws of Leadership for Black Women. Marsha Haygood and Elaine Brown, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A quick look ahead to Thursday. The Challenger Job Cuts report is out, and it should give us an idea of where layoffs are happening. And so is the weekly jobless claims number. And on Arise Xchange, tomorrow we'll talk with digital media expert Patricia Shazair. That's Arise Xchange for this Wednesday. I'm Andrew Schmartz.